I am back right after a few seconds. As I said, the next section we have is on position in a saturated market, why most agencies sound the same. And the person who will present on this topic, I would like to call him on a stage, Chris Dubois from Dynamic Agency OS. Designed to help marketing agency owners systemize their business, clarify their market positioning, and transition away from founder lead sales. So let's welcome Chris Dubois on the stage. Welcome, Chris.
All right. Thanks for having me.
I think we are right on time, right after the keynote session. I think we do not need to wait. You can start the presentation if you can share the screen so we can start the session.
Yeah. All right. And there we go. All right. Hello, everyone. As a way to kind of kick this off first, at the very end, I'm going to go through an exercise that I like running with a lot of my clients. But if anyone here wants to be a guinea pig, you can just drop your URL in for your specific agency website into the chat, and I'm going to set up one of my tools to build something for us. I'll share a document with everybody that includes these, and then we can kind of get going. So I'll give you a second. I'm assuming there's a bit of a lag, as there are with most webinars. And if no one wants a guinea pig, I can just give examples later too. You don't have to sacrifice yourself. The concept for that one is going to be finding the word that your brand can own, and it'll help with kind of dictating all of your decisions and everything, your marketing, your like everything else that you're doing within the business. But I'll leave that open. I can pause and grab any URLs as they show up. And if no agencies pop in, anyone else who's running a different type of business, feel free. It's not going to take me any time to run this. But let's talk positioning, because this is what I do essentially every day, all day, is just talk positioning with agencies, and how we should be using this, because I think we're all stuck in this problem of sounding the exact same as everybody else, right? And so let me grab one of the URLs quick. Boom. All right. As those URLs flood in, I'll keep doing stuff. But let's. Oh, now you guys are all sending them in. All right. I'll catch up in a second. Let's hit the presentation, then I'll come back to some of these. So the challenge with positioning, right, is that everybody does sound the same right now period, across the board, almost every company. We just heard Marcel talk about SaaS companies. They all sound the same, and now they're struggling because anybody can create a SaaS company. With agencies, like anyone can create an agency, right? You can, if you get a laptop, you can go sit in your mom's basement and you are now an agency. So what we want to do is figure out how we stop sounding the same as everybody else. Now, the problem that we need to solve with this is what I'm calling the pick me problem. Everyone seems to just be like shouting, pick me, right? Like if you remember in gym class, right, where you're picking two teams and stuff, or whatever sport it was. Nobody is picking based off like who's shouting, pick me the loudest, right? There was always a reason they were picking someone. Maybe you were the best person for throwing. We're playing baseball, so you're the best hitter. You were the best second baseman. Like there was a reason. Maybe it's just that you were their best friend, but there is always a reason that someone is picking you. What we want to do is figure out what are those reasons the buyer is looking to buy, and then we fit ourselves into that packaging so that we can then get picked more. I want to run an exercise with everyone while we're doing this. So we're going to hit the chat again here. How many people here would say that they have a world-class team? Feel free, hit it in the chat. I'll keep making small talk while you guys are doing this. Not me. We got a not me. Okay, well that's we have one. Really, man, we got a lot of people who won't say. Okay, let me rephrase. Who not necessarily saying that you're saying this on your website or anywhere, but believe you have a world-class team. And we've got a lot of people saying no. That's all right. Let's do There we go. Andy believes it. That's good. All right. Now, let's hit the next one. How many people would say they drive growth? Oh, can't afford a team. Okay, that's a good reason. You can be world class as well. All right. How many people drive growth? This feels like a pretty simple one. And I'm going to hit the last one. How many people say they're data driven? All right. All right. Almost everyone here is going to say these things because everyone can claim these things. I used some AI to help me with the search for this. I went into Perplexity. I just had it look up it was probably 500 different agency websites and find what are the top phrases that people are using on their homepage. And those are the top 3. And I see them all the time. And most of the clients that come to work with me, these are the things that are on their homepage that we immediately cut and we find something else, because when everyone can claim them, right, they mean nothing. They don't actually do anything for the business. So what is the point of even having those on the website? So what I want to do is help you understand why this is likely happening to you. Okay, first, you are too close to the problem. I don't know if anyone's heard of Solomon's paradox. King Solomon, super wise king, right? A lot of people looked up to him, but his entire personal life was in shambles because he didn't know how to deal with his own problems. That's something that literally everyone faces, right? You've probably heard the cobbler's kids' shoes, you can't read the label from inside the jar, right? All these different things. We just can't solve our own problems the way that we can solve other people's. And so even if we have the best advice, going out and giving it to someone else is very hard. Now, we also recycle a lot of those same claims. And so we get results. We have the best team. We're experienced. That one comes up a lot. When you're using these terms, a lot of the times it's because you're seeing them out there. And so you just assume that that's what needs to be said in order to get a specific result. And so a lot of times we're just using the things that we have seen out there and assuming that they're going to work. With that, kind of coupled along the same vein, we're just also assuming that we know what the buyers care about. We've never actually done the research to say, what do they actually want to see? And so we're taking guesses. And anytime we're taking guesses at what the buyer values, we're inserting a lot of risk in our positioning. And so what do we need to do in order to stop this from happening? Positioning. Hey, that shouldn't have been much of a surprise, right? I've already said the word positioning probably 100 times in this presentation, but let's define what positioning is, because I think a lot of times people don't fully kind of grasp what it is. Now, positioning completely lives in the mind of the buyer, right? So when someone looks at our business, they are putting us in a box, and that is where we sit. We're being compared to whatever the alternatives are, whether that's other agencies, whether that's what they're doing in-house, right? We are being seen in a very specific way. We cannot change this immediately. We can't just go to the buyer and say, hey, you should think about us this way, right? We can influence it by showing them certain things, and we're going to get into how we can do that. But we don't have direct control over this. So it's really important that we have a system to be able to get them to see the world the way we do, so that they want to kind of think about us that way. So it's easier for them to call us up. Okay. Positioning again. So positioning lives in the buyer's mind, right? So the gap that we need to kind of cross here is taking what they're already thinking about us and then figuring out, okay, well, what do we need to do in order for them to believe it, right? And so a lot of times this comes down to the actions that we take. We can't just use words, which is essentially what everyone is doing in their marketing. They're just going out and throwing the words out that say, we are X, we are Y, but they're never showing it. They're never demonstrating this and giving people proof that this is how we actually need to be seen. And so take generosity, right? Simple example. If I tell you that I am generous, very few people right now are going to believe that I am a generous person. But if I take the actions. I'm donating money. I'm donating my time. I'm volunteering in places. I'm just being generally friendly and trying to help people, right? You would actually believe that I am generous if you were seeing me take all those actions. And so we can't just go make the claim without actually taking efforts and doing the work. Okay, so what we want to do is, this is our goal for positioning. We need to first put a label on the box. We want them to, like, when they have this box in their head, they're going to take that box, they're going to put it on a shelf somewhere, right? We want to make sure that they can easily see that box and know exactly where to find it, so that when someone brings up, like, hey, do you know any businesses that do this, right? They think about us right away. Once we have that label identified, then we own it. We do those actions to make sure that we can actually stand out with that labeling. And then we have to distinguish ourselves within that. But like, our box needs to be the best looking box in there. It's not the raggedy one that, it's existed in the corner. It's got dust and spider webs. It's like, it's one that's fresh. It's super easy for them to find. Like, when you can do all of this, right, it is going to be much easier for someone to refer you business, for the buyer to look at you and understand who you are, what you do, and why they should buy from you. You are being put in that box no matter what, right? Whether it's against the competition, other agencies, other businesses, or they're comparing you to just what are they doing in-house, that if they're going to spend money, it's like, well, we're replacing, maybe this team member has been doing 40 hours of work every week on this one task. Now we're going to bring someone else in so they can focus on a different task. Is it worth us doing that? Or should we just keep having this person do it, right? You're always being compared. And so this is how we get after it, right? This is the path to becoming the obvious option. We need to own that box entirely. Okay. So what do we need to do in order to get there? Okay. The solution, this 2 parts. First, we need to understand the buyer. We need to fully grasp everything that they're doing, and not in a like just surface level knowledge. Like, a lot of times I find ICP docs will stop at, what do they care about? What are their fears? What are their frustrations? Like, and that's all useful when you start getting into the copywriting part of like your marketing. But we need to know, like, where do they show up, right? Where are they already going to hang out so that they can find new information about the problem that you solve? If we find, like, a lot of people just say, hey, go market on LinkedIn. If you're in the business world, you should be on LinkedIn marketing. But is your audience looking for solutions on LinkedIn? Because LinkedIn isn't a discovery platform, right? Nobody is going into the search bar on LinkedIn and typing in their problem. They're typing in a company name, maybe a person's name, right? They're looking for jobs, but nobody is going to try solving a problem. They're going to AI, they're going to Google, Reddit, right? Different communities, maybe their peer network. There are other places that they're going to look for this. Now, they could find people on LinkedIn. Maybe there's some influencer that is well known for solving this problem as well, or maybe they're an adjacent problem. Going into their comment section and commenting and helping people there could be a great way to access this audience, but we have to know exactly where they are. One of my clients right now there's a Facebook group that has probably 75% of their audience is in this one group. So when we talk about like marketing, right, and knowing whether your message is actually being seen, that is where they can put it out. So they can go test their positioning. They can make claims. They can say whatever they need to. And if no one engages in that community, it probably just means it sucks, right? It's not the right thing. Nobody cares about it. If I just go post on LinkedIn out in the open, I don't even know if the right people are seeing this. And so we're not going to get the desired result. So we need to understand the buyer entirely. Now, when they're making a decision, right, what are they thinking about? What things are they going to use in the comparisons? Like a lot of, especially in SaaS, right? We just going back to like what Marcel was talking about. A lot of times people are going to make like comparison tables and put them up on their site, and they're going to show all the competitors and like, hey, these are the features we have. These are the different things that we can offer that they can't. Like, how is your buyer creating their own mental comparison table, and what do you need to be showing up for? Now, the challenge for SaaS is that a lot of times I can just copy whatever features you have now, right? I can go talk to Claude Code, I can get things built, and then we're moving on. But what um, in the agency space, it's much harder to copy certain things, but it's still actually pretty easy to take your method, um, to take like whatever claims you're making on the site and find a way to craft this for myself. But so what we need to do is figure out, as someone is making this decision, what do we need to be putting in front of them to reduce the risk so that they're more confident in making that decision faster with us. Now, to do that, we also need to understand how are we already showing up. This is essentially a personal inventory, right? What are the different, and we're going to get into this in the next slide, I think. But we need to look at the different ways that we can actually stand out and see how are we already showing up, so that we can then use that as different points of leverage in order to make this work. So if anybody's got questions as we're going through this, just hit in the chat. This next slide is a lot. We're going to spend a lot of time here. So feel free to ask any questions. We can go through this. This is where a majority of my work comes out, where I believe there are 11 different levers that we should be using within our marketing, to kind of figure out what is the stack that I need to make in order to kind of create the right positioning framework for my business. And so I've broken these into 3 buckets, and we're going to talk about each separately and go through some examples. But as you're looking through these, think about your own business and try to figure out which ones of these are you towards like the top kind of percentile in the pack. So like I'll pull these ones up, right? So we got 4 positioning levers. The positioning levers are like who you are and how you show up, right? These are probably the easiest ones to pick and to figure out, but really anyone can claim them, right? When we talk about like market focus, it's essentially picking your niche, right? And getting really refined. There's a lot more steps in that, but with your market focus, anyone can say, we only work with roofers, right? Or we only work with fintech SaaS platforms. And so it doesn't really hold up on its own. And so what we need to do is add some of the other levers to this to start creating a stack. And the more things that we can stack in where we are towards the top of the pack, right? Where it's like with problem ownership. If there's only 10 agencies that we're in competition with, and we're the only ones who solve this problem, or maybe there's 2 competitors that have it, like we're in the top 20% ish, right? If we're doing math. And so that already puts us in like a different group, right? If we're in the top 20% with problem ownership and with our point of view, and we have these right relationships, now it's much harder for someone to come in and copy what we're doing. And if those things all matter to our buyer, then it's near impossible for someone to just come in and take business from us without also changing the way that their business is structured and the things that they're doing internally. And I love that Marcel brought up a bunch of these ahead of time, because, and we've chatted about this separately, but like your problem, your point of view, your process, like all of these things are different levers that we can pull on within this. And so let's do just kind of briefly for all of these, because I know we're restricted on time. Your market focus is your niche, right? I recommend you look at your industry, find a sub-industry within that, and then find the horizontal axis that you would want to attack. So your vertical is going to be the industry. Your horizontal is going to be whatever job function you work with. And so if you target CMOs, right, then I can say, okay, we are in textile manufacturing with CMOs. Now that's pretty focused for a market, right? Versus saying, hey, we work in manufacturing, where like nobody's going to stop their scroll if they just see manufacturing. But if you say, hey, CMOs in textile manufacturing, not a lot of people talking to them, right? And so when you call that out, it makes it much easier for your marketing to stand out. And as long as there's a reason behind it, right? And I'm not going to, I'll probably repeat it anyways, but I'm going to try not to a bunch. There needs to be a reason behind everything you are selecting with these positioning. So if I say I work with textile manufacturers, why is that of benefit to the buyer? If you can't like articulate that piece, then you need to find something else. There has to be a reason. Most people pick a niche based off like, okay, well, I have some experience there. I know they'll make me some money. They got money to be able to pay, right? They have the problem that I know I can solve. So I'm going to work here. But like, what does that make you different versus someone else, right? There's very limited reasons I would not use it. So that's market focus. Now, when you do take your vertical, right, the sub industry, and then you take the horizontal, where those intersect, you get a series of problems that specific person has. When you look at that problem, that's where you can say, okay, which one do I have the best ability to solve for? And that becomes the problem that you own. You name that problem, frame that problem, and then that becomes something you market everywhere, because people do not care about your solution. They care about having a solution to their problem. And so they're not lying awake at night, right, thinking, oh, I hope I can find this solution. It's like, no, they're thinking about that problem and how much it worries them. And so if you can name that problem and talk about it in a way that shows them you understand it, they will assume you have the solution. And so that's what we want to do there. Your point of view, often overlooked, but like, you should have a strong point of view. When you look at the conventional wisdom across the board for how is everyone already thinking within this space, is there something you disagree with for how things are done, right? Hey, the old way of doing things doesn't make sense anymore. And then you get to make this claim that says, here's how I believe you should be looking at the problem. And anyone who hears that and agrees with you is going to want to follow that path. Now, relationships is a very hard one to find, but it is very useful if you have it. Imagine, so you're an agency, maybe you're an influencer agency. So you're helping to connect some of the dots so that you can take your client's product, put it in the hands of different influencers, they're going to market it. If you have 100 of the top YouTube stars in your network, right? And so if you start working with me, I can get your product in the hands of like all of these people who will have billions and billions of dollars worth of value given to you through this. If you can offer that, like, that's pretty good. If I can give your product to Oprah Winfrey because we're buds and she holds it up on stage, like, you're now a national bestseller, right? And so it's hard to find relationships that are strong enough to lean into on this. But if you have them, it is a reason that someone would want to work with you. Okay, so let's move into the structural levers now. And again, feel free to hit any questions up as I'm going through this too. But your structural levers. So this is about how you actually deliver things, right? This is where the copying gets really hard to do. So with your delivery model, it's not your methodology, right? This is a separate lever. This one is like, how do I actually deliver the work now? I have talked to some agencies that are 100% asynchronous. They do not meet with clients. They have like weekly reports they give out. They send some Loom videos, but they never have a meeting on the schedule. And the idea is that they want to move so fast and just have as less friction as possible that they're going to just meet this way. Like, they're just going to conduct the work that way. Now, if you're someone in a blue collar field, right? If you're like a plumber, a client I was talking with recently, like veterinarians, they don't want to stop to have a 1 hour meeting about their marketing. They just want to go treat their patients. They want to go do the things that need to happen in order for their business to continue thriving. They don't want to think about marketing. And so, or whatever service you offer. And so being able to deliver this for them in a way that they don't have to now do that. They can keep working on their thing and you're going to set their life up to be easy. That is a reason for them to want to pick you. Maybe it's hey, we meet every other week. Maybe it's we deliver everything in like over a certain timeline, and then you get access to whatever platforms, right? And now you can just have access to us that way. There's a bunch of different ways you can look at the delivery model. You could do like group sessions versus one-on-one. Maybe it's like a done for you package versus a done with you package, right? Or a do it yourself. Like, some agencies still offer do it yourself type work, and then people can do that and then move up into the next thing. These are all options. All right, operational constraints. Sometimes the things that you say no to doing are the reasons that people would want to work with you. If you're an SEO agency and you say, I will not build your website, I will not do your social media marketing, right? I don't do ads because I truly believe in just being the best at SEO. So if that is what you need, I'm the one for you. Again, it's another reason someone would want to work with you. Now your methodology in IP is like, what is that underlying reason or like method for getting the work done? And so a lot of methodologies are identical to each other. But if you have some specific way of doing things that other people can't just show up and copy, it's a very, very strong way for you to stand out. If you have IP, like you've collected data, you've worked with so many companies, or you run annual surveys, and so you just have knowledge that no one else does. You can be using that in your marketing to stand out with your positioning. Now, talent, going back to like everyone, we all have world-class talent, right? If you're using this, there should be an actual reason that someone would hire you because of that talent. The reason we can't say like we all have world-class talent on our websites is because that makes the assumption that all of your competitors can't just copy that. And so they can't come in and say, or let me rephrase, that would mean that they all have just like the worst talent ever, right? You're making a claim that obviously isn't true. And so when we look at talent, it's like, I spent personally this many years in here. So like I'm an Army vet. Now, if I were to market to defense contractors and say, hey, I'm using my experience as a veteran, right, as an infantry officer in the Army, to say, these are the products that I can help you market to the Army and win these contracts, that could be something of benefit to them. It could be anything else. You could have already built your own business, sold it, and now you're running an agency to teach other people how to do this, right? There's a bunch of agencies that have operated through that. That's something else you could use. And now finally, you have commitment levers, which is essentially how do you put skin in the game, right? When we talk like your economic model, we're talking about how do you charge? How are you incentivized to get paid? And so one of my starting pieces with when I started coaching, I charged $500 a month. But for every 10K of new revenue I helped my client bring in, my pay went up another $500. So now I'm incentivized to help them grow as fast as possible, right? So it's not just, hey, we get an hour coaching call every week. It's like, no, I'm trying to help you with your marketing to bring in business so that we can actually make you more money, because then I get paid more as well. And I've had multiple clients who hired me specifically for that. You can choose different like tiered level pricing the same way that SaaS would. You can, there's so many options, right? But it all comes down to like, how are you showing them that you are incentivized to get paid, so that if those incentives align, they want to work with you. Risk reversal, it's all about your guarantees. Quick thing, do not ever guarantee money back, because then you will only attract people who want money back. We want to avoid that. Don't do it. With your risk reversal, it should be something you have direct control over as well. So if I know that I'm going to give you a marketing system to be able to use, like that's what I'm promising. I'm not promising leads. I'm not promising revenue. I'm promising that you will have a working system by this date. If you don't, here's what I will do in exchange. And then finally, your outcome, right? Everybody can just promise like bold outcomes. And usually this is what your guarantee is kind of based off of. But having a clear outcome is something that, like, if people hear it, go back to the value equation that Marcel had put up from Alex Ramosi. The dream outcome is one of those critical components to showing value and how much something is actually worth. And so, yeah, that's all right. This is a lot. I know. I got an example in a couple slides that I'll talk through like very briefly. But what you want to be doing with these buckets is choosing like 2 to 3 per. Well, really, at least 2 per each of these buckets that you could lean into. Now, you can't just make it up, right? It has to be something that you deliberately can use. And so, like, if you don't have a strong problem that you're marketing, you have 2 choices. Either don't use that one, find a stronger point of view, find a deeper market focus you can use, or get really strong with the problem ownership. Go find what you need to be doing in order to make this stronger so you can actually use it. Okay. One quick caveat. A lot of agencies want to find where they're the only agency for something. Now, the problem with this is that 10 years ago, it was great. You could be the only agency for a specific client type. Now, the market, as soon as it sees that something is working, everyone is going to copy you, right? It's not going to hold up. So you actually need to find those three strongest levers, 3 to 5 really, and stack them. So now it is impossible for someone to just copy you tomorrow. So quick example, if let's just say Weatherproof agency for roofers. Okay. So if this is like made up agency, let's say they're an agency that's focused on like the hard weather conditions for roofers, knowing that like, hey, storm season, they actually get more business, but what should we be doing? So that, okay, market focus is strong. They're going to be working only with roofers. The problem ownership is like, they also want to own the off season, not just storm season. And so they get real busy during storm season when people's roofs are getting ripped off. But what if I was able to maintain throughout the year your entire business? Now that's something that stands out to people. Now, when I can give you a delivery model that basically has like, hey, what if we can get accounts staged before and after the season? And so rather than just waiting for storm season to finish up and then seeing what else can we be doing, we're actually we've created a model that enables us to get you that like ongoing support. Potential name for like their methodology could be like the Weatherproof pipeline, right? And we just have this 4-channel engine that we are going to fire because we know you're local. And so we know we can run the same playbook for everybody, depending on where they are, and get similar results. And then finally, we can pull in the risk reversal. Hey, if this is our off-season guarantee, if your slowest quarter doesn't beat last year's slowest quarter, then we're going to work the next one for free. And that is a pretty bold risk reversal, right? A guarantee that we have put in here. But by stacking all of these, you can see it's now much harder for someone to just come in and do everything that this agency is doing. They can actually stand out on their own. And if some of those things are really appealing to their buyer, which like in this case, they should be, because they've done their research, they know how they can show up, they have the experience, then building this stack and leaning into it is now much stronger. All right. So how can we differentiate? First, do your inventory, right? Figure out how of those levers, how do I actually stand out? Align those to the customer value. You want to map them out in a way that says, okay, the clients care about these things. I can contribute to these. Here's what I need to get better at. Here's what we probably forget about. Like some of them you can just write off. If you don't have strong relationships, don't even worry about it. Don't think about building those relationships. Just find the ones that are already stronger. And then finally, you can build that positioning stack. So the big takeaway here, right, is you're shouting pick me is not going to work, right? You cannot just stand out with that. You can't use the same words. You can't use the same terminology because everyone is already doing it. What you need to do is stack those traits that you have that are already incredibly hard for someone to copy. And when you stack them, it's now near impossible for them to just show up and emulate your entire business model. And so this is what you need to do in order to be able to have to stand out in a saturated market. And so that is it for that. Now, happy to take any questions. And I want to pull up some of the other things that I got working while we were chatting here. And so I'm going to unshare my screen. Boom. All right. Dinesh, welcome back.
Thank you so much for the... Is my voice clear?
Yep, I got you.
Okay.
Let me go back and find some of these other URLs people dropped.
Yeah. Listen, thank you so much for the insightful session. I think we all have something to take back and rethink about how we position ourselves. So let's give him a big round of applause that we have a great reminder that standing out is not about being louder, it's about being clearer.
Awesome.
Chris, you also asked for some URLs. So are
Yep.
you showing something to us?
Yeah, I'm going to share the link in the chat to one of these. So we got a Tim Africa or TIM Africa, however that's. So this concept, I'm going to drop this. Everybody can see this one. I'm still pulling some of the other URLs, but that everyone should be able to access that Google Doc I just dropped to see. So one of the concepts that I like working with is figuring out, when you look at your positioning and we go through these levers, what is that owned word? What is that one word that, like Nike has athlete as a word, Volvo owns safety, right? All these different companies have a word that you think about when you talk about the brand. If you can have your own word, right? And I'm not making this stuff up. This was Al Rice, Jack Trout, right? When they wrote their positioning books or branding books, this is a concept that they introduced. And the idea is, if you know what word you have, then all of your decisions can be routed through that word. And so in this doc that I just shared, this is like super simple. So I will give a quick caveat to this. Like, this is just my tool looking at the website. I normally go way deeper into what your actual positioning is before doing any of this. So this is just a guess. But when you look at like this word as cascade in the doc, and so we wouldn't want to use the word cascade in our marketing, because just like I was saying, right, with being generous, if I claim to be generous, nobody is going to believe me. What we want is other people calling me generous, and then that works for credibility. So here, you use the word cascade to go through, like in the how to use it section. This is like a decision filter, right? Does this trigger the next step, or is it a dead end? And so everything we're thinking about is like, as I make this choice, does it cascade into the next choice? Does it keep just rolling off into these things? If we're not doing that, then we are not like fulfilling kind of our goals as a business. It could be like the metrics that matter, right? You're looking at second order and compounding metrics. Your core narrative is that the old way is marketing is disconnected one-offs, where you have like different channels just going off different directions. We want your first channel, whatever you're using, to cascade into the other channels. And so like even down to the point of view, it all fits back. And then it gives a little way to validate it. And I'm still building a couple of the other ones that I can pop in after this. But the idea is like, if you can find that word, now everyone on your team also has the like an understanding of how they should show up. And so their decisions get faster, right? If everyone knows that they should be like, if they have the filters to be able to say, well, does this promote us cascading in whatever we're trying to do? If they can say yes to that, then they know they can just go make that decision. They don't have to come to you for approval, because they already know what you're going to say. And so now it lets us move faster. It lets us hire faster. It lets us market faster. Everything just becomes better and more coherent, because everything we're doing is going through a filter. And so we're not going to have these random acts of marketing popping up everywhere. We're always asking these same questions to make sure that we're on track and everything is consistent. And that is really how your positioning is going to stand out. It's not just, hey, I'm marketing on LinkedIn or whatever. It's that every time everyone on our team publishes on LinkedIn, we're saying similar things. Like, we give the same feel, and it makes it much easier for people to understand who we are and why they should pick us. So,
All right. Everyone, please check out the link Chris shared in the chat. Chris, we have a question as well. Let me pin the question on the screen as well. So Nabil is asking, as an educator building an online platform, I am struggling with the pick me problem in a crowded market. What is the most effective way to identify the reason students truly care about, so I can position my platform as a unique solution rather than just another course?
Yeah. So the first thing I would do here is ask, like, who is the buyer first, depending on, like, it's an education platform. So there could be, if you're selling to like younger people, then the parents are the actual buyer. And so the way that we're working the messaging and the targeting for that is going to be very different than if we're talking to like adults who are just trying to learn more. I would still go through the same levers and say, what is your belief about here? Well, yeah, I won't pull up slides again, but like, you can say your point of view. Like, I think most schooling is done wrong. Here's what we believe, and here's why we do things different. You could look at lever of like your methodology is like, here's how we actually structure learning. First, you're going to do like a core lesson then you're going to go into a practical exercise, then you're going to have to meet with a team member from our side to actually work through this with you live, to kind of force you to think about this. And then we're going to every day for the next week bring up like different like quizzes so that we're doing the memory recall thing. And so like you have a distinct method to what you're trying to do, that if someone says like, oh, that method seems like it could work for me, I've tried everything else, it hasn't worked, let me try this, right? That's enough for them to get in there. You can also, if you have a very targeted market focus for this, like, hey, we only want to do classes for these types of people who are trying to learn like these things. What else? You could have an economic model. Imagine, and like, I'm just throwing an idea here, but what if people had to pay per class, but for if they finish the final test with a certain grade, then you give credits back to their account. And so now you're incentivized to help them learn because you want them purchasing more programs. And then they're also knowing that, hey, when I make this first payment, this could actually come back. Part of it could come back to me to buy the next course. So now you're making them as stickier clients and getting them to do more. And you're also basically creating this, it's a commitment lever, right? To say,
recurring customers, yeah.
Right. This is how we believe so much in what we do, and you're going to get so much value from this course that if we do it this way, you're going to stay with us. So yeah, I would look through the levers and see how those could fit for you. They do work. I've done this like similar talks with like banking industries, which like if you want to talk to some people who are not the most excitable, bankers are, yeah, but they could use all of this as well. Like one credit union versus another. It's like, well, why would I choose yours over theirs? And we go through the same levers and say, okay, well, this is a pretty good reason why I would choose you.
Perfect.
Yeah,
thank you so much for the. Are you saying something?
Yeah. I dropped another link. Just wanted to so some people could check out another example of one. This one was for the agentic system design. But yeah.
Perfect.
Otherwise,
thank you so much for the detailed answer and for the insightful session. I would request you to stay active in the Q&A session. There are a few other questions as well. This is Chris. Thank you so much, Chris, for the time that you provide to us. Chris is active in the Q&A session, but we are not going anywhere. We have another insightful session lined up for years. Scaling meant hiring. Today, AI is changing the question, and that's what we are about to explore with Vito Play from Ataring. So we will be right back in few minutes. Don't go anywhere and stay tuned.